and disturbing going on in the street, I tend to be drawn to it.
For a time, it truly felt like James Spader had slipped quietly out of Hollywood. One decade, he was everywhere, playing strange, intense men who made audiences uncomfortable in the best way. The next, he seemed to fade into the background, rarely seen at red carpets, rarely discussed in blockbuster conversations, and rarely connected to big studio films. There was no public scandal, no loud controversy, no dramatic career collapse. Instead, there was silence. That silence made people curious. Did he walk away? Was he pushed out? Or did he simply choose a different path? To understand why his presence feels different today, you have to understand the kind of actor he always was. Spader was never built like a typical movie star. He had the face of a leading man, but the instincts of a character actor. While many actors chase fame, franchise roles, and wide audience approval, Spader often chased something else entirely. He looked for roles that felt unusual, risky, or emotionally complex. That choice shaped everything. When Hollywood shifted towards superheroes, action franchises, and global box office numbers, actors who did not fit that mold often found themselves standing slightly outside the spotlight. But in Spader's case, that distance was not a failure. It was closer to a preference. He has always shown more interest in the work itself than in the fame that comes with it. That difference is important because his so-called disappearance is not about rejection or exile. It is about priorities. He did not vanish because Hollywood stopped calling. He stepped back because constant visibility was never his goal. His career has always moved in waves, with intense periods of work followed by long gaps of quiet living. To some observers, that pattern looks like fading away. To Spader, it looks like balance. The real story is less about a dramatic fall and more about a man who never fully belonged to the Hollywood machine in the first place. And once you see that, his disappearance starts to make much more sense to understand his distance from mainstream fame. It helps to look at his early life. Spader grew up in a household shaped by education and structure. He lived in faculty housing at Brooks School, where his father worked as a teacher. Later, he attended Phillips Academy, Andover, one of the most respected prep schools in the United States. On paper, that background sounds privileged and comfortable. But life was not extravagant. His parents were teachers and money was often tight. More important than finances was the environment itself. He grew up around classrooms, rules, and academic expectations. Yet he never felt fully at ease in that system. By his own admission, he was restless and easily distracted. He struggled to sit still and follow strict paths. That restless energy pushed him toward creative outlets. Acting became the first place where he felt focused rather than confined. At 17, he left school and moved to New York City to chase acting full-time. That decision was bold, even risky. There was no guarantee of success and no safety net waiting for him. He worked odd jobs to survive, including physically demanding labor and even briefly teaching yoga without formal training. Those years were not glamorous. They were about persistence. This early period reveals something important about Spader's personality. He was not driven by fame. He was driven by curiosity and survival. Acting was not a sacred calling to him. It was something he enjoyed and something that eventually paid the bills. That practical relationship with his career would stay with him. He never built his identity around celebrity status. Instead, he treated acting as work, sometimes exciting, sometimes exhausting, but never something that defined his entire worth. That attitude, formed in youth, later shaped the choices that made him seem distant from the Hollywood spotlight. When Spader began building his film career in the 1980s, Hollywood quickly noticed his unusual presence. He often played wealthy, arrogant, morally questionable young men. One of his most memorable early roles was in Pretty in Pink, where he portrayed a slick antagonist who audiences loved to hate. As the years went on, he leaned further into darker material. In 1989, he starred in Sex, Lies, and Videotape, a film that became a cultural milestone and won major awards at international festivals. That role helped define him as an actor willing to explore emotional discomfort and sexual tension on screen. Later, He appeared in films like Stargate and Wolf, showing that he could move between genres. Yet, even in larger productions, he rarely chose safe characters. He gravitated toward men who were complex, obsessive, or slightly unsettling. That pattern continued into the early 2000s with Secretary, where he played a man involved in a deeply unconventional relationship. The performance was bold and intimate, and it strengthened his reputation as an actor unafraid of risk. His co-star, Maggie Gyllenhaal, later described the intense atmosphere he brought to the set. By this point, Spader had firmly separated himself from traditional romantic leads. He was not chasing roles that would make him universally adored. Instead, he built a career around emotional tension and psychological depth. While that approach earned him respect, it also placed him slightly outside mainstream commercial cinema. Studios often prefer actors who can anchor large franchises or broad comedies. Spader preferred challenging stories that explored uncomfortable truths. Over time, that difference created a gap between him and the type of global fame enjoyed by more conventional stars. Television eventually became a powerful space for him to shine. In the early 2000s, he joined the legal drama The Practice, where he played the brilliant but morally flexible lawyer Alan Shore. The character was sharp, witty, and unpredictable, and audiences responded strongly. That role led directly into the spin-off series Boston Legal, where Spader shared the screen with William Shatner. Their on-screen chemistry became a major highlight. Spader's calm, controlled delivery balanced Shatner's larger-than-life style. The performance earned him multiple awards and proved that his quiet intensity could work beautifully in a comedic setting. Later, he almost took a surprising comedic turn in Anchorman, where he reportedly showed strong interest in a role that eventually went to Steve Carell. Though that opportunity did not materialize, it revealed something interesting about him. He understood humor deeply, even if audiences mainly saw him as dramatic. In 2011, he stepped into another major television moment when he joined The Office as Robert California, a mysterious executive whose presence shifted the show's tone. The original series was created by Ricky Gervais and Stephen Merchant, and the American version was developed after producer Ben Silverman brought the idea to NBC. Spader's character, Robert California, was calm and intimidating, very different from the chaotic humor that defined the series. His performance was strong, but the tonal mismatch divided viewers. This moment became symbolic of his career. He was compelling, but not always a natural fit for mainstream formulas. One of his most commercially successful roles came when he voiced the villain Ultron in Avengers: Age of Ultron. Though he did not appear physically on screen, his voice performance carried the character's cold intelligence and menace. The film earned massive box office numbers worldwide. Yet even in this huge franchise, Spader remained somewhat separate from celebrity culture. He was part of the Marvel Universe, but not in the same visible way as the costumed heroes. This reflects his broader career pattern. He participates in large projects, but he does not immerse himself in the publicity machine. Off-screen, his priorities have always leaned toward family and privacy. He was married to Victoria Keel, and together they raised children during years when many actors would have pushed harder for constant visibility. He has openly admitted that he prefers time at home over endless premieres and press tours. Financially, he has said he is not always strategic. At times, he worked simply because money was running low. That honesty makes him different from stars who carefully planned every career move. Eventually, he found long-term stability in television with The Blacklist, where he played Raymond Reddington for many seasons. That role provided consistent income and a loyal fan base. Yet even after that show ended, he did not rush into new projects. There are currently no major upcoming films attached to his name. To some observers, that quiet looks like disappearance. In truth, it looks like choice. James Spader has never been obsessed with staying everywhere at once. He values living more than visibility. His career has not ended in scandal or collapse. It has simply followed the rhythm he prefers: intense work followed by retreat. In an industry built on constant exposure, choosing distance can look like vanishing. But in his case, it may simply be another deliberate step away from a spotlight he never fully trusted. As the years passed, One thing became clearer about James Spader. His relationship with Hollywood was always practical, never romantic. Many actors speak about cinema as destiny, as a lifelong dream that guided every decision. Spader has rarely framed his career that way. In interviews, he has often said that acting started almost by accident. It was something he enjoyed, something he happened to be good at, and eventually something that paid his bills. That grounded view shaped how he moved through the industry. He never seemed desperate to stay relevant, and he never built a public persona designed to dominate entertainment headlines. Unlike actors who constantly attend award shows, charity galas, fashion events, and industry parties, Spader has often avoided those spaces entirely. He has described red carpets as overwhelming and uncomfortable, almost like performances separate from the work he actually cares about. For someone wired like him, the quiet intensity of a film set makes sense. The noise of celebrity culture does not. That difference matters when people wonder why he appears less visible today. Visibility in Hollywood is not only about acting. It is about constant presence, branding, networking, and strategic appearances. Spader has openly admitted that he dislikes that side of the business. He does not enjoy developing projects behind the scenes or carefully managing public image. If he is not acting in front of a camera, he prefers to step away entirely. This creates long gaps between projects. To fans scanning headlines, those gaps look like disappearance. In reality, they are intentional pauses. After long television commitments, especially a demanding series schedule, stepping back can feel necessary. Television production often requires months of intense filming each year, leaving little time for personal life. Once that schedule ends, some actors immediately chase new roles to maintain momentum. Spader appears to do the opposite. He takes space. He resets. He lives quietly. In an era where constant exposure is almost expected, that rhythm feels unusual. Yet it fits his personality perfectly. He has often said he values living more than being seen. That philosophy alone explains much of what people interpret as retreat. Another factor that shaped his path is the type of characters he consistently chose. From early films like Pretty in Pink to later roles in Crash and Secretary, he gravitated towards stories that explored discomfort, desire, and emotional tension. These were not always mainstream crowd pleasers. They were often intimate films that challenged audiences. Even when he stepped into larger projects, such as voicing Ultron in Avengers: Age of Ultron, he chose the villain rather than the hero. That pattern reveals something important. Spader seems more interested in exploring power, control, and moral ambiguity than in portraying traditional heroism. This made him compelling, but it also limited the range of blockbuster roles that naturally fit him. Hollywood's biggest franchises often rely on clear heroes with wide appeal. Spader's screen presence carries a sense of mystery and intensity that does not always align with that formula. When he joined The Office as Robert California, the contrast became obvious. The show thrived on awkward vulnerability and emotional chaos. Robert California, by contrast, was calm, controlled, and slightly intimidating. His performance was deliberate and technically strong, but the energy he brought shifted the tone. Some viewers appreciated that bold difference. Others felt it disrupted the emotional rhythm they loved. That divided reaction reinforced the idea that Spader does not naturally blend into every mainstream space. He stands out. Sometimes that uniqueness creates magic, as it did in Boston Legal alongside William Shatner. Other times, it highlights contrast rather than harmony. Over decades, this pattern quietly shaped how studios viewed him. He became known as a specialist in complex roles rather than a universal leading man. Specialists can have long, respected careers, but they are not always constantly visible in blockbuster cycles. That difference contributes to the perception that he stepped away, when in truth, he simply followed a narrower artistic lane. His long-running role in The Blacklist provides another key piece of the puzzle. For nearly a decade, he portrayed Raymond Reddington, a criminal mastermind with charm, intelligence, and unpredictable motives. The show became a stable presence on television and developed a dedicated fan base. Unlike short film shoots, a network drama requires steady commitment year after year. That kind of schedule can be exhausting. When the series concluded, it marked the end of an extended chapter in his professional life. Many actors, after finishing such a long project, choose to take time before committing again. In Spader's case, that pause fits his lifelong rhythm of intense work followed by retreat. He has never shown urgency about filling every gap with another contract. Financially, television provided security in ways film work sometimes did not. In earlier interviews, he admitted that he often accepted roles when his bank account ran low. Television's steady pay reduced that pressure. With stability achieved, there was less reason to constantly chase the next job. This changes how we interpret his current quiet period. It may not signal rejection from Hollywood, but rather comfort. Comfort allows choice. Choice allows pause. Beyond career mechanics, personality plays a powerful role. Spader has spoken about obsessive tendencies and a need for precision in his performances. That intensity can be draining. Living inside complex characters for long stretches requires focus and emotional energy. Taking breaks protects that energy. He has also maintained a fiercely private personal life. Unlike many public figures, he rarely shares details about his family or daily routines. That privacy reduces media coverage, which in turn reduces the feeling of constant presence. In today's entertainment culture, where actors often maintain visibility through social media, interviews, and public events, choosing privacy can look like absence. But absence from publicity does not equal absence from life. James Spader's so-called disappearance is less about decline and more about design. He built a career on complexity rather than mass appeal, valued personal time over endless exposure, and embraced television stability instead of chasing non-stop film headlines. When you examine the full arc of his choices, the mystery fades. He did not fall out of Hollywood. He simply refused to orbit it continuously. When people talk about unique actors in Hollywood, the name James Spader often comes up. James Spader has never been a typical movie star. He was never the loudest, never the flashiest, and never the kind of celebrity who chased attention. Yet somehow he always stood out. From the beginning of his career, there was something unusual about him. He had a calm voice, a slow way of speaking, and a powerful stare that could make even simple lines feel important. In the 1980s, when many young actors were trying to look charming and heroic, Spader often chose roles that were darker and more complex. In films like Pretty in Pink and Less Than Zero, he did not play the sweet leading man. Instead, he played rich, arrogant, sometimes cruel young men. These roles could have made audiences dislike him, but they also showed how fearless he was. He was not afraid to look bad on screen. He was not afraid to play characters that were flawed or even mean. That choice made him different from other actors of his time. As his career moved forward, he continued to choose roles that were bold and sometimes controversial. One of the biggest turning points came with the film Sex, Lies, and Videotape. In this movie, Spader played a mysterious man who records women talking about their personal lives. The film was quiet and emotional, and it depended heavily on strong acting. Spader's performance was intense, but controlled. He did not overact. He let silence do part of the work. The film became a major success and won important awards. Suddenly, people saw him not just as a villain type, but as a serious and talented actor. However, even after that success, he did not start chasing big action roles or blockbuster films. Instead, he kept choosing characters that were strange, complicated, or even uncomfortable. In Crash, he starred in a very controversial story that many people found disturbing. Once again, he showed that he cared more about challenging work than about being popular. This pattern defined his career. While many actors focus on building a clean and shiny public image, Spader seemed more interested in exploring the darker parts of human nature. He often played characters who were morally unclear, intelligent, and emotionally distant. This made him fascinating to watch but also hard to understand. Audiences could not easily label him as a hero or villain. He existed somewhere in between. Over time, this built his reputation as a thinking actor, someone who takes his craft seriously and chooses roles carefully. But it also meant he was not always in the spotlight like some of his peers. He was respected, but he was not constantly featured in magazines or gossip shows. He rarely shared details about his private life. He did not appear often on talk shows. He did not chase social media fame. Slowly, this created a quiet distance between him and mainstream Hollywood. It was not that he disappeared suddenly. Instead, he slowly stepped away from the loud part of fame. And that choice, as we now understand, was not about failure. It was about control. In the early 2000s, something surprising happened. Instead of fighting to stay in big Hollywood movies, James Spader made a strong move toward television. At that time, some actors saw TV as a step down. But Spader saw something different. He joined the legal drama The Practice, where he played an unusual and confident lawyer. His performance was so strong that he won major awards. Then he moved to another legal show, Boston Legal. In this series, he played Alan Shore, a smart and sometimes strange attorney who delivered powerful speeches in court. The role allowed him to mix humor, intelligence, and emotion. It became one of the most loved performances of his career. This move to television showed that Spader was not disappearing at all. He was simply choosing a different path. Television was changing during that time. Stories were becoming deeper. Characters were more detailed. Actors had more space to grow within a series. Spader understood this shift before many others did. By focusing on strong TV roles, he stayed active and respected, even if he was not constantly appearing in blockbuster films. Later, he joined The Blacklist, where he played Raymond "Red" Reddington. This role became one of the most iconic of his career. His voice, his calm delivery, and his mysterious presence made the character unforgettable. The show ran for many seasons and built a loyal fan base around the world. When people say James Spader disappeared from Hollywood, the truth is more complex. He did not disappear. He shifted. He moved away from the traditional movie star path and built something more stable and controlled. He chose long-term projects over short bursts of fame. He focused on characters that allowed him to use his strengths. In many ways, he found a smarter way to survive in a difficult industry. While some actors burn bright and fade quickly, Spader chose steady and consistent work.